Once upon a time, there was a girl born in the shadows, and from the shadows she was tethered to another, from up above. And when that girl felt joy, the girl in the shadow was cursed with excruciating pain, bound for eternity to yield the other's suffering, alone, forgotten, until one day, by the fate of the almighty hand, the universe would bring them together, when the girl would finally meet her shadow. This is It Records.
Is that your announcer voice at the end?
Oh, I could go more announcer. If I really wanted to, I could go like radio DJ. Really ham it up.
Was that your calling before you took up renewable energy as your minor or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah. I was always told I had a face for radio, so
yeah,
that was my first gig.
I mean, you're in the right business for it if it's podcast, because podcast is the new radio, I guess. Just internet radio.
Yeah, so everything's worked out.
That's true. Yeah, do you guys know where the term podcast came from? Like, what is a podcast?
No idea.
No, I have no idea.
You know, I'm going to probably blow this, but I thought it was like Apple came up with the term like iPod, and it was like for a broadcast, like a podcast.
That would make a lot of sense.
Where? If this is wrong, it's being cut from the it's going to be cut. Podcast is the term formed by combining iPod and broadcast. The term podcasting is the name for the technology first suggested by the Guardian columnist, yada yada yada, but yeah.
Wow.
So iPods and broadcast.
You know, I have to admit that's something that I never wondered about, but I'm really glad that you told us.
You're welcome, you know. People just go through their daily lives. They just never know where podcast came from, where I'm setting the record straight.
You know.
You guys didn't have to take the test? I guess it's just good enough for one member to take the test, and then anybody can join the podcast.
I had a podcast before you, technically.
That is true. What was the name of that podcast?
Horoscope.
Horoscope. That's right.
Yeah,
that's where you read.
That's a pretty good name.
That is a pretty good name. For reading people's horoscopes, scary horoscopes is what that was, right?
Yeah.
I like it.
Sure.
I think there's always a need for that.
I'd read their palms and then tell them when they were going to die.
Charming.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sure.
We didn't have many episodes because people didn't want to come back because they just kept dying.
Yeah. People picked up on the trend and just didn't call in. It was dead air all the time.
And that's where the term dead air comes from.
From horoscope. That's interesting. Yeah. It's good to...
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
So yeah, we're doing Us, if that's the movie that we were supposed to watch.
If any of you came here for a movie review.
Yeah. The 2019 film directed and written by Jordan Peele. Us.
To take the dirt out of the bag.
That's a classic right there.
What does I Got 5 on it mean?
It's about drugs.
It's not about drugs. It's a dope song. Don't do drugs.
Get in rhythm. There you go. There you go. Can't believe how big they've got.
You hear Gabe got a boat?
He's kidding, right?
He's not kidding.
Hey, I think it's vodka o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Where's Jason?
Jason?
Jason! Where were you?
I didn't know if you were lost. Stick with me, and I'll keep you safe.
There's a family in our driveway.
It's probably the neighbors. But y'all scared of a family? Hi, can I help you?
Zora, put your shoes on.
If you want to get crazy, we can get crazy. What are you people?
It's us.
They look exactly like us. They think like us. They know where we are. We need to move and keep moving. They won't stop until they kill us. Or we kill them.
Be careful.
His second feature film.
Yep.
Yeah, second feature film. If you have no idea about this movie, it's a family's serene beach vacation turns to chaos when their doppelgangers appear and begin to terrorize them. I'll leave it at that, but that's the general idea. If you haven't seen it or the trailer. But also, I have this right in front of me. It is, you said, his second feature film. But it's also the third collaboration between Jordan Peele, Jason Blum, and Sean McKittrick. They did Get Out and BlacKkKlansman together. They all had a part in BlacKkKlansman, the Oscar-nominated film.
Okay.
Jordan Peele was in that?
Not in it, he was a producer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he produced BlacKkKlansman. I think those all three of those guys are producers of that film. Which we also did Get Out on this podcast, just so it was the first feature-length film of Jordan Peele's.
Yeah.
So now we're doing the aftermath.
Us kind of not quasi sequel, as in it's made by the same person, and that's all there is to it.
Yep. Nothing else really similar about them, which I like because it shows that.
Right, there's no.
It shows that
Yeah.
Jordan Peele's not just one-dimensional. So I kind of like that. He takes us with a completely different spin in this one. What would you guys call this film? I was asking people about it before I went to see it. I'm like, do you think it's horror? Do you think it's more thriller? They were all telling me that it's definitely more of a thriller, like a psychological thriller. I think it's both. I think it's plenty, fits into the horror category, but there's still a lot of that psychological element to it, too. What do you guys think?
I've always said that I think thriller is kind of like a part of the umbrella of horror. Even though, I think that's just, a marketing thing that was kind of... This is my opinion. This could be all fucking bullshit. But I think it was just, a marketing thing, has, horror has, a certain, connotation to it. And then, thriller is kind of advertised as something that's, that has a better story, I think. At least that's how they frame it. And there's usually, a mystery involved, or some kind of it's usually more grounded and deals more with characters rather than one bad person as the highlight. But I still consider it all part of the same family.
Okay.
In the horror genre, you're saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think when people say thriller today, I agree with you, Pete. It kind of falls into that horror envelope, because I think the thriller really encapsulates the terror that's in the horror genre, where there's gore, which is the physical violence and blood you see. Repulsion is your reaction to it, but there's also the terror and suspense, which Hitchcock was great at, which is really atmospheric, but also gore, for instance, is like getting your foot cut off, but terror is someone saying, I'm going to cut your foot off, and it's you creating these images in your head of like what that's going to feel like, what it's going to look like, but not exactly seeing it. And I think thriller kind of blends with that terror element a lot in horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it falls into the psychological horror, but I'll also throw out there that it has a lot of gothic horror elements, in the sense that, this isn't really spoilers, if you watch the trailer, there's doppelgangers in this film, and the thing of gothic horror is mirrors and shadows and seeing your other self, whether it be a ghost or just someone who kind of looks like you, your primal instincts. That's a gothic element, and it's prevalent in a lot of horror, even to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So it has that sort of underlying theme to it.
Okay. Good point.
I don't want to have too many spoilers, but I think, should we lay out the plot for the people of kind of what goes on in Us? I feel like there's a lot we could talk about with this film.
Yeah, it's tough because I feel like we haven't done such a new movie. I guess like Halloween, we did that, but we completely spoiled it. But like Halloween, there's not as much story because like everyone's like familiar with like the story of Halloween, like, and it's like been around for a long time, whereas Us is like a completely new story, or like it's based off, taking elements of different things, but essentially it's like a new thing.
Sure.
So it's kind of hard to. I think we won't spoil it completely. We'll try to save some things for the viewer.
Maybe we
is
can like
relatively still new. I mean, it's only been out for like a month.
I think with that in mind, we won't spoil really much, but just the idea, because they go to the beach where the mother, who is Lupita from Star Wars, 12 Years a Slave, she went there as a child, had a traumatic event where we don't really know what it was at the beginning, but she went into a funhouse mirrors, sort of had a traumatic event where she doesn't speak for years afterwards, and then she's returning back to the beach as an adult woman with her family. And she sees a doppelganger family that's exactly the same as hers, and I'll just leave it at that from there. They're just basically trying to take over their lives. Is what you kind of want to take from it. But there's a lot to unpack in terms of what Jordan Peele was trying to say with this film, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And he did the same thing with Get Out. It's another kind of social satire type piece.
Yeah, he went bigger with this one, I think. Like, because I think it had more overarching, like catastrophic events, whereas Get Out was much more focused around the main character's life. Like, the scope of it was so much bigger.
Sure. I agree.
And I think that kind of, in my opinion, hurt it more than did its own benefit. I was kind of like going back and forth with this, like, after seeing it in the theater. Like, I liked like the way it was shot. Like, it looked beautiful, and the acting was really great, and had great comedic beats to kind of like break up like the tension. But I think just like how it ended up being bigger, like, took away from the focus of like what was happening to them. And I think it would have been better if it was just more closely related to the main family. And like there was like a scene later on where she's talking to her double. I guess I am kind of spoiling it right now, but I'm trying to brushly go over it. Where they have a conversation, and it seems like she's just kind of like giving too much away, without like in like particularly avoiding like given out too much away, because like she's kind of like basically unleashing like, this is my evil plot, but then like I'm not gonna give you answers to like what we are, kind of thing. Like it kind of like gives you too much, and then like when they give you too much, you're like, well, what about this? And then they don't give you that, so that made me that I had some problems with that.
So do you think it would have been better if Peele kind of left out some of that explanation, or what he tried to explain?
I think so, because then like if he explained more, then it wouldn't be as like, because like when you explain too much, especially in a horror film, it usually is bad.
I think it left, in order to not say too much, I do think it left a little bit more to be desired. You know, I think you're left with a lot of questions at the end still, and you know, when you get those answers, they aren't really that satisfying. So I would agree.
I would say it's definitely a movie. Sorry to cut you off for a second, Matt. I just want to finish this up. That I think it's definitely a movie that I need to see again, like knowing everything that happens, just to see like what I could pick up on, and like see if I change my feelings about it, since I only saw it once. And like again, like it was like a lot of great things going for it, but like it just fell short for like certain things. Like I don't know, I can't really like, besides like explaining too much and then like wanting more of it, like that's just the best way I could feel disappointed with it, is just from like that third act, I guess.
I feel like one of the things I want to say is going to be a full spoiler, so I will preface it, and this could be cut as well, for a full spoiler. But we've talked about the ending, and this whole film is based on the idea of a doppelganger. You don't know where they're coming from, or why they're doing what they're doing, but it seems like everybody has a doppelganger when they come to this beach area, and it just looks like they're trying to take over the lives of the people that we've been watching the whole time on screen. And that's what you're kind of believing, and you're following these characters, and then at the end what we realize is that Red, the person we thought was evil, was actually the real Adelaide girl from the beginning, who had been trapped down there, and the person above was the shadow, or the tethered, which I can bring this in. The tethered is what they're called, the doppelgangers. And I think that's an interesting perspective that he was going for. The whole idea is looking through a different lens as the other, where you need to look at yourself, where he made the audience watch the villain the whole movie and really root for the villain, and then at the very end being like, oh, you were duped the whole time, which was kind of what he was going with the movie. And that's how, unless you picked up on it the whole time, you were really rooting for the tethered person.
For me, it wasn't like something that I really was like trying to guess. Like I usually am not one to like guess like an ending, and so when I saw it unfold, I didn't like take it that much as a shock, because I kind of like, from this like previous movies I've seen with twist endings, like it seemed like, oh, this is like kind of like your standard twist ending type situation, and like, but I liked how he did it. But I think like people's reaction to it were weird, how it was such a twist for them. But just for me, I was like, well, that just, this just comes with the territory. But I liked how he put it more of like kind of like a philosophical question, where it's just like, who was like the good person in the end, like, and it kind of was like, kind of, you're a product of your environment kind of thing. Like, here are these people that like are just like caged like their whole lives, and are like eating rabbits or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're just driven into insanity, and then like this woman who was normal, quote unquote, at first, just becomes insane because she has like no one to talk to for 20 years or however old she is, and gets like everything that's happening to her to her other self is happening to her, just like much more botched versions, like, you know, like childbirth, like I would assume is kind of like that's mirrored, and then like of course like they don't have like the same equipment, so I'm just assuming everything is just worse for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point. The product of your environment, you said, where I kind of took that, the whole idea of like the nature versus nurture, where our main character is kind of well adjusted when we start the film, and when she goes down with the tethered, she kind of, as you said, becomes insane, and the tethered person living in the normal world lives a normal happy life. So it's really not your nature, but your product of your environment, which is another theme of the film, I think. Just in general, like your environment and what you were born into kind of will lead to where you're going in life.
Yeah, and I wish like we're like I said earlier, like where it went like bigger scope, like how it included like a whole bunch of people, like other tethered people like escaping, and I think it's really like at the end where it kind of just like loses me, where like the very end where it shows like how big of like coordinated attack this was, and then like that's where it just starts to get like, and I don't want to say unbelievable, but it just seems like it's like kind of like hitting all these notes that like here's this like small like contained idea that's like just exploded over like the world, and then like he's not doing enough with like the world to make it like that kind of story. Like you would think with something such large scope invasion, you would assume like, I almost thought he was gonna have aliens, because like I feel like I was honestly getting that kind of vibe, because like they showed like the movie Chud, or CHUD, however you want to say, and apparently there's a lot of similarities between the two movies, but I've never seen it. But I knew there were, because like he showed it for a reason. I've heard about it, and like because I think they're aliens from the sewer or whatever. If I remember correctly.
It's underground creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also there's the Goonies tape there too.
Okay.
Which is, they spend a bunch of time underground in the sewers as well.
Yeah.
That was right next to Chud.
And like I think it like wanted it like,
yeah, which
sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna point out another Goonies reference, but
no, go ahead.
Please
go ahead.
from the film, but I don't need to.
No, I want it now.
I believe the food that they were eating, the family at the beginning, where they were all eating fast food, and Adelaide was eating like strawberries. It was called Copper Pots, Chester Copper Pots, which is a Goonies reference, like a direct.
Okay.
That's a direct Goonies. It has to be,
That's
right?
clever.
It's too coincidental.
I mean, didn't even notice, but I believe you.
Same.
What are your thoughts, Lindsay? I feel like we haven't heard your opinion in some time.
I mean, I think, I think we can say, like, this movie is definitely about class. And I think, we get many examples of this throughout the movie, but, it kind of focuses on how our society is, can be very materialistic and into things, as we see with Ophelia. I'll leave it at that. But, yeah, so, I mean, I think there's a lot of different statements that Jordan Peele is making here. At least for me, like, you were kind of talking about, like, how, that twist didn't really, shock me. Well, it shocked me. And, I think, I think for most people, this is a movie where there's lots and lots of clues, obviously dropped, along the way, but it's done so masterfully that, most people are going to be none the wiser. So it's really worth going back for a second watch, like, knowing, what you know, after viewing it for the first time. So, I think that he did that really well.
I agree. I really want to see it a second time, because we could spend the whole podcast talking about the little Easter eggs that he dropped in this film, or foreshadowing elements, just from costume to, like, we already mentioned Chud and the Goonies, or the VHS tape that we saw next to the TV at the beginning of the film, which have reference to what we're going to see going forward. There's plenty of that, and I think on your own time it's interesting to kind of pick out what you will. Try to figure out what's up with those damn bunnies, which are all over this film.
Yeah, I was really trying to figure that out, and I think it's not much more besides, they're used as a food source, and that's the end of it. There could be more, but that's the most clear-cut answer.
I don't know what the deepest symbolism is for it, but they basically mirror the Tethered. So when she's down in there, they're all locked up in the cages and they're eating them. But when they go down later, towards like the climax, they're all running crazy all over the place, and that's when the Tethered are above. So it could be like they're tethered to some weird extent, like another species below them. But I think the bigger thing is Jordan Peele has said in numerous interviews he thinks bunnies are terrifying.
Yeah.
Like rabbits are terrifying. Like they look so cute, but also so terrifying at the same time. So that's why he puts bunnies in his movies.
I could have sworn I saw one, like in the beginning when they just kept showing the bunnies. Like I could have sworn I saw one that was really messed up looking, and I was like, okay, this is weird, but like it never like went further than that. Like because it was only like one bunny out of like the fucking 100 that I could have sworn like looked. It like either had like one ear, or like it looked something was off with it. Maybe it was just like my mind trying to find something, but I could have sworn it was like something fucked up here.
Yeah, I did the same thing in that when the opening credits start after the first sequence, and it's just basically the pulling back of that first rabbit to like all of them in the cage. I was like, my brain was going a mile a minute. Like, what was going on? What does this all mean? How does it connect at all? Yeah. But I had a bit of trivia. One, I'll do a reference. Did the boardwalk seem familiar? The beginning boardwalk at night to any film?
Uh-huh.
Any guesses on what a possible reference was?
I know, so,
Oh, okay.
What is it? Because I don't know.
I believe it's Lost Boys.
Yes.
That opening Santa Cruz boardwalk is supposed to be emulating. And the mother in the opening scene of Adelaide says, they're shooting a movie over there by the carousel.
And it was 1986, right? So the movie came out 87,
yes.
So that was like perfect.
Yeah. So there's vampires here too. Lost Boys.
I love that. I love that so much.
I didn't catch that at all.
Well, then a little more. I guess I'm not going to quiz you on this, but I found this pretty interesting that Jordan Peele sent a list of 10 films to the actors to watch prior to this to kind of give them the feel for what he wanted us to be. I was wondering how many of these you've seen.
Oh, okay.
I'll read them down. I'll go through the first one. Number 1, Dead Again. Anybody seen Dead Again?
No.
I have not either. I have not seen
Right.
it. But there's a lot of scissors, and the loss of memory is one of the major themes. Number 2 is The Shining. I feel like we've all seen The Shining. Okay. That's the threat to the family unit from within. Number 3, The Babadook.
No.
The Babadook. Yes. So.
I have.
Okay. It's a psychological horror dealing with trauma and grief, and a mother character as well. Number 4, It Follows. It Follows?
Nope.
I've seen that one. Oh, interesting. Pete, you've seen it, right?
Yeah, I got a tally. I'm gonna reveal it at the end.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. You keep your tally. So It Follows has that sense of dread that this movie does, uses seductive visuals, and it's also trivia by the same cinematographer, Mike Juliak. I can't pronounce your last name. Giolakis.
He's coming out you right now.
I know. Oh, he's right over my shoulder. Yeah, so he did the cinematography for both. That's probably why they both look pretty beautiful.
They're both shot
nope.
very well.
Number 5, A Tale of Two Sisters.
Okay, yes.
I know your answer on that one.
Is it on the podcast?
Number 6 is The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock. Sudden and inexplicable terror from something we never saw as a threat. 7, Funny Games, the original, about home invasion. Number 8, Martyrs, gore and suffering. Number 9, Let the Right One In, the foreign version. And number 10, we just talked about this, The Sixth Sense.
Okay.
Things are not always what they seem.
I got a solid 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. All right, Pete.
7.
You have 7 out of 10. I think. Let me count here. 1, 2. 6. I got 8. I haven't seen Dead Again or Martyrs.
All right.
Yeah, I've never even heard of Murderers.
Martyrs. I think there's an American version that's.
Martyrs.
Yeah.
I mean, I still haven't seen it, but yeah, I heard Murderers.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, I don't know what the hell that is.
Isn't there an American? Cause it's not an American film, is it?
Yeah, it was recently remade as an American film, and it was supposed to be really bad.
That's right. Yeah.
Usually the case for American remade foreign films. Not always, but it usually is.
Usually is the case, yeah. Yeah, I'm happy Tale of Two Sisters made that list, because I'm quite a fan of that one.
It's quite a list, like, he asked his actors to watch. Like, that's quite of, like, you know, that's 20 hours, essentially. Maybe not that long, but, like, potentially 20 hours of watching movies.
Yeah. Those 10 movies were the feel he wanted for us.
Yeah.
Before we get into Defend or Destroy, one thing you don't have to get all into spoilers, but I was wondering what your guys' thoughts were comparing Get Out to Us. Because I feel like when everybody left the theater, the people I were talking to, they immediately tried to compare it to Get Out. And is that a fair comparison, really?
I didn't do it immediately, but when I did talk about, like, how I felt about it, I did compare it to Get Out in that regard. I think you can, just because it is directed by the same person, and I think that's, like, a valid, like, thought process to have, but it's not really like it. Only the way it's like it's with this kind of social economics, like, way of deconstructing horror. Like, he's really good about doing that, and I'm looking forward to more of those type of movies in the future. And I would say Get Out did it better, and I like it more. And I would say that Us is probably more of a horror movie than Get Out, because it's gorier, and that's not always a testament to horror, but I think it helps. And, like, the story is more, I don't know, I guess they are both pretty ludicrous. I think it seems there's more, I can't think of the name for it, but, like, there's more of, like, a evil plot, I guess. I don't know. It just seems like there's just, like, more at play in this movie, which kind of comes off as a horror movie than as compared to Get Out. Where it's just, like, a secluded neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I echo a lot of what Pete said. I immediately, as I was leaving the theater, I was like, I think I like this one better than Get Out, but it's been a while since I've seen Get Out, so it's easy for me to say that. Yeah, I mean, they're totally different, you know, and I think, like Peter was saying, it's easy to do that because they're both Jordan Peele. You know, they both make the statements about society, but they're totally different statements, and, yeah, I mean, I think, like, yeah. I'm done.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think to echo Pete about it is fair to compare them. It's the same guy, and you know he's going to try to do similar things that he did with Get Out and channel that success that he had again. It does feel like a different film. But I feel like what I heard the most from people was they liked Get Out more, but they enjoyed Us. So it wasn't like Us was inferior, but they were. I think because Get Out existed, they were looking for something exactly the same, and always your expectations won't hit what you were thinking. Whereas Get Out, I remember seeing the trailer for Get Out for Jordan, and then Jordan Peele's name come across the screen, and I was like, "What? Like Jordan Peele's making a horror film? Like I'll go see this, but what? I don't know what this is going to be." And it was kind of surprising and fun. Where I think this conjures that same feeling, and it's interesting. But it wasn't as fresh as Get Out, so people were just hoping maybe for something completely new again. But I think it holds its weight to Get Out.
What, for your opinion, would you say that you liked more, just for the sake of argument?
Which one did I like more?
Yeah.
Between the two?
Yeah.
I think I lean towards Get Out more. I like a lot what Us does, but the idea that Get Out's really confined into the one house, really. I felt more terror for that character, that like he was trapped in there and where he was never going to get out. No pun intended. But this one was like a bigger scale, and they were kind of out in the open, even though it was like the boardwalk and the beach, and it was happening everywhere, kind of like Night of the Living Dead. But I just think, and that it was focused on one person, really. And with the family, you had like 4 characters, so maybe that's why I just felt more tense. Get Out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and this just came to me, and I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, but Get Out, I thought, had a really good score. That beginning they made, that was like Swahili and some mixture of something else that Jordan Peele wanted to create. And I could play it underneath us as we're talking in the podcast, so you can get, if you remember it at all, that score. But what did you guys think of the score for this film? How he did with Us?
I really, it was the same guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I really liked it. It kind of like it felt bigger. Like it felt like in the beginning, it was like almost like an evil opera to me. I can't even like mimic the noises because I'm such a terrible singer. But like, it just like the vibes, and I think the weird process too I had was that hearing this music and seeing bunnies, I was like Bunnicula. Like,
Oh my
I was
god!
like, I don't know why I had that thought.
Now you're taking me back to 3rd grade.
But I would say that I'm just going straight into it, that I defend this movie, and I pretty much just Control C, Control V of what I said earlier. That I have some like I'm nitpicking here and there about some of the way it was like structured, but ultimately it was like a very good movie because it had great acting and like comedy beats that were refreshing and like just made the whole experience more fun and like had a lot going for it. But I would say that I wish like there was more more at stake, like none of the main characters got really hurt in any way, and like the third act was like the weak spot for me, but still defend it in the end.
I will defend Us. One thing I'll say about the score that I mentioned was they played the song "I Got 5 on It" earlier, which that was the score. Was just he kind of remixed that to sound a little more orchestra, but it was the same beat from that rap song, which is something Jordan Peele attempted to do. And he said it gave it a Nightmare on Elm Street vibe. I don't know if you got that from the theme. I kind of got that from the Nightmare on Elm Street soundtrack. But back to my Defend or Destroy. I'll get right to it. Defend It. I really love what Jordan Peele is doing. At a time where I feel, at least in the mid-2000s, where like possession films and ghost films, like The Conjuring, Paranormal Activities, found footage, those were like the big kind of subgenre that was pretty big right now, or horror genre that's dominated by remakes, whether it be It or Halloween's a sequel, essentially, Pet Sematary. I really like that Jordan Peele's films don't feel like either of those, and it's still pulling in the blockbuster type horror dollars. Like, people look forward to a Jordan Peele horror film. It kind of transcends what we know of the genre right now, so I'm excited when I see them. It's just kind of a breath of fresh air. And the last part I'll mention is I wanted to say that Jordan Peele, we knew him as a comedian, and he's doing these horror films. He always was kind of an expert at the uncanny. If you ever watched Key and Peele, the TV show, a lot of those sketches have a really kind of like weird, uncanny, dark humor to them. Twilight Zone-esque, which is why Jordan Peele is there. So I don't think it was a far stretch for him to be like, well, I'm just going to do full-on horror. I'm gonna go all the way beyond these jokes. I'm going to make a whole movie. So that's my spiel. Enough. I defend it.
All right. Got it. Yeah, I want to thank the acting, especially from all the main characters and those who had the dual roles. Everybody did really, really well with that. It was shot really well. It was a good and original story. I love the subtle shout-outs like they did with the Lost Boys. I love Peele symbolism, again. When we get the answers that we want about the doppelgangers and everything, I think they're a little bit lacking. And kind of like Peter said, maybe this is a case where, the less you say, it can be better. But that being said, I love this movie, and it's going to be a defend for me.
There you have it, a unanimous defend. Oh my gosh, I almost said destroy. Sorry. Unanimous defend for us. So go out and see it. I think right now all your chances are if it's still playing in a movie theater somewhere, or you have to bootleg it online, because I think it's in that weird middle ground.
Go to the cheap theater. It's probably in those cheap theaters that play it like 2 months later.
Right. That's probably where it's hovering. I don't think it's on like Netflix or Amazon or anything like that quite yet. And, until next time, get at us on Facebook and Twitter. That's where we'll be communicating through the internet. Get on our website, check out any blogs, let us know what you're thinking, what you'd like us to do as a mini episode or a full-length episode as well. Like us on SoundCloud and iTunes, or subscribe. That really helps us get viewers out there and listeners to repeat. But until next time, I'm Matt Johnson, and I will remain in the shadows underneath the boardwalk, just like the Tethered.
Whoa.
That was good.
I have nothing.
Same.
My name is Peter.